Hello, this is Keith Seymour with Real Talk. I'm here with my friend Albert Bruce Moore, also my producer. We're here to talk about how the rich and powerful have gotten out of hand. For example, we've had the President of the United States call people unpatriotic because of the uh, "we don't know kings in the United States" protest. He's called them unpatriotic. That's the most patriotic thing you can do. This is how we got away from King George III. President Trump is behaving exactly like George III did in the 1760s and the 1770s. And he's doing it exactly for the same reason. Just as George III treated British citizens living in the colonies, what they called the American colonies, we were part of England at that time, like dirt, because he could, because he ruled the most powerful country in the world. President Trump is treating American citizens like trash because he can, because he rules the most powerful country in the world. This has got to stop. This country has a constitution, and that constitution begins with the First Amendment, which the president has also tried to usurp, no, just basically do away with by the Jimmy Kimmel thing a couple months ago. He threatened the ABC network with, well, not was it not really renewing their license? Was that it, Bruce? Not renewing their license if they kept this guy on. This guy's a comedian. His job is to criticize politicians and make jokes about it, regardless of party. Okay, and we have free speech in this country. We're not Russia, not yet.
Is there a limit to that free speech?
Yes, there is a limit to free speech. You can't endanger people by yelling fire in a crowded theater, okay, when there's no fire.
Or if they bomb at an airport.
Exactly. You cannot slander someone or libel someone. And for those who do not know the difference, libel is the published version of slander. You cannot speak treasonous, or you cannot threaten someone. I cannot say, Bruce, if you stop producing this show for me, I'm going to kick your sorry ass, and I'm going to kick it from here to Kingdom Come. And I cannot say that. Now, if I say it, you know what I'm saying, jokingly, that's one thing. But if I say it like I really am going to do this, where you feel your life is threatened, that's not covered by the First Amendment, okay? I cannot punch you in the face. That's a form of expression, but it's not legal free expression. The Supreme Court has ruled on these cases, regardless of political affiliation, since the 1950s. Roth versus the United States, Miller versus the United States. Okay? Also obscene things. So basically, this is why I'm sorry 16-year-olds aren't allowed to buy pornography. Basically, you're not allowed to take nude pictures and post them on the internet. This is a violation of free expression. So when that free speech infringes on someone else's freedom, it ceases to fall under First Amendment protection. What Jimmy Kimmel did was made a joke. It didn't prevent the president from doing anything.
The context was that it was insensitive to Charlie Kirk.
So yeah, okay. So what was insensitive to Charlie Kirk?
Look, you know what he said? Jimmy Kimmel made a reference of Trump being devastated. Played a clip of Trump being asked a question. In the clip itself, when Trump is asked the question, he says it's bad, but he immediately misdirects and starts talking about there being Trump isn't as empathetic to a murder as he is excited about that ballroom.
Right, I remember that. And there was also wasn't there also some other implication that Trump was using it for political gain? Charlie Kirk's death.
I mean, I don't know if that's
I've heard that. But basically, okay, he's an insensitive lout. Okay, whether you're Democrat or Republican, you know that Trump is not the most sensitive of people. He says what he thinks before he thinks, or he says what. Okay, he has a diary of the mouth that just runs on. But basically, that doesn't infringe. So it's insensitive. Okay, it's insensitive if I tell my girlfriend that's a really ugly dress you're wearing. It's also not too bright. Well, there are other ways to say it, like if she says, "Oh, it's nice," but I said, "Yeah."
So you're talking about the coral?
Yeah, I'm saying, well, it doesn't. It didn't infringe. Okay, so it's insensitive. Insensitivity does not mean it did not stop him. It did not hinder his duties as president.
I mean, that type of rhetoric should be. I mean, is there anything that's off limits of a joke?
Okay, I remember when Jimmy Carter was president. Okay, and he was in the White House. He lived in the White House with his mother Lillian and his daughter, who was always protesting, and his Rosalind was really the only bright, bright, intelligent person in the entire family, in my personal opinion. And then he had his big fat brother who created Billy Beer. Every time you opened the funny section, there was Billy Beer. You know, there was a redneck President Carter and his redneck brother. I mean, Johnny Carson made jokes about this. Okay.
Okay, but no one died. See, I guess that's the context of it. Charlie Kirk had been murdered. Let me ask you this question. When there was, I guess, the Kennedy assassination, how long before people started making any reference?
I don't know that people did.
Okay, I guess that's the concept. That's the dynamic. People want to create that dynamic. I'm not saying Charlie Kirk is JFK, but to that level, to that point, though, that's sort of what the issue is.
It was in poor taste, correct? It was in poor taste. Uh, a professor of mine, John Kringle, who's the head, far more to the left than I am, but he's a man I truly respect. He's actually president of South Carolina Watchdog Organization. When I was at Benedict, he said the First Amendment is there to protect speech we don't agree with, not speech we do agree with. Because if we agreed with the speech, we wouldn't need it protected. Okay. Okay. People make jokes about, people dying. It's if you put it in context, what else is he going to do? Okay. The president, the way you described it, the president did seem more excited about tearing it down an entire wing and building a ballroom than he did about his so-called best friend Goodwill. I don't know if he has a best friend. His so-called friend's murder.
Murder, assassination,
Yeah, assassination, murder. He wasn't joking about the murder. He was made a joke about the president's reaction. If he had made the same joke about Nancy Pelosi,
which happened.
Right.
That was the thing that the other side is pointing to, that when Nancy Pelosi's husband was attacked. And I think there was even the case of a assassination
on her attempt. Yes, it was.
No, not attempt. Either way.
Yeah.
The MAGA side of things did make jokes about it. So
exactly.
The hypocrisy of it.
Exactly. It's hypocritical. So, you can't support the First Amendment in one particular case and then have the opposite side do exactly the same thing. It's like before we came on the air, we were watching the news. Well, you came in as watching the news. And we were getting ready for this. And Greg Abbott, the Republican governor of Texas, is saying it's wrong and it's unfair that Gavin Newsom, is way too liberal for my personal taste, of California, should not be allowed to redistrict. So he's criticizing someone for doing exactly what he did. If it's wrong for a Republican to do it, it's wrong for a Democrat to do it, and vice versa. If it's right for a Republican to do it, it's okay for the Democrats to do it. That's what we need to get back to. And I'm sorry, this whole thing with we don't need kings, okay? A while back, someone, I think it was last year, said that Democrats were thinking about having Prince Harry's wife, Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Suffolk. And I said, she's not going to get her elected because we don't want people with royal titles. And actually, it's in the Constitution that you can't have a royal title given the prince, okay? Another power. So, and I said, we don't want that. And I got a whole lot of likes on that on X. So, he is acting like a king, a borderline dictator. And I don't mean Hitler, but I think he's coming pretty close to Ferdinand Marcos of the Philippines, who was elected, and then he called martial law. Or the Castro. Okay, they were elected, but they pulled this sort of crap too. Fidel Castro, I think And I'm kind of suspicious that anybody is. Well, I shouldn't do guilt by association, but he's too close to Putin for my personal thing. Okay. So, yeah, we got the president acting like a king. Now, this has led to the government shutdown. Now, this shutdown has lasted for going on 6 weeks, and I did a little research. The president makes $400,000. This comes to, and I got this off Senate.gov and President.gov, $33,333 a month. This is not including and that's tax free. That's not including the $50,000 he has for office expenses. The tax free $100,000 that he gets for travel, and the $19,000 a month that he gets for entertainment, which brings it to $602,000 a month. Congress makes a year. The majority leader of each party in each house makes $193,000 each year. The Speaker of House, which is Republican Mike Johnson, makes $223,000 a year. And the Senate Pro Temp makes $193,000. Now, I mention these figures simply because South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham, who I personally know, we have attended several of pro-life events together. I've known him since he was in the House of Representatives. Overall, he's an okay person. But I have a problem with his latest stunt. Lindsey Graham has said that to avoid government shutdowns in the future, we should pass a law. He has a bill in Congress that says during that time, you're supposed to give up your salary to lower the deficit. Now, this is a brilliant idea. I've been saying this for years. But he only says Congress, which means the U.S. Congress and the Senate. He doesn't include the president, which we will get to later. Why I think omitted that. But for this bill to actually pass and become a law, it would have to be an amendment because currently there is an amendment that says the Congress and senators get paid whatever they want, get paid throughout their year, regardless of what happens. They get paid for the entire congressional year. So even if there's a shutdown, this shouldn't happen. You go to work, I go to work, or we don't get paid. If we own our own business and we don't operate that business properly, we go out of business. We don't get to give ourselves raises. Congressmen and senators do. We pay their tax dollars. Our tax dollars pay their salary. So I don't think I should be paying Senator Graham or Joe Wilson or President Trump or Vice President Vance or anybody else in Washington, D.C. It's out of my tax dollars. Give me that money back, do away with the deficit, take it off my taxes. So this is a good idea. But the problem with this passing is it has to be made an amendment. That means 2/3 of both houses. That's 66 senators. And what is 2/3 of 435,000? Well, let's see. I think it's something like, okay. What is the number of senators and members of the House of Representatives? Okay, so 435 senators. So 67 out of 100 senators and 290 out of 435 members of the House of Representatives. You can't even get a 50%. Now, I don't know what party you belong to, but let's be honest, and I want you to you can write stuff Seymour at X. Okay, that's WRITSTFCMOUR at X. I want you to tell me, do you honestly think a senator is going to give up $174? Well, you divide that $174,000 paycheck. Well, it probably wouldn't be 400. It would be if we narrow it down to 12. Divide that amount by 12, we get divided by 12. That's 14,500. So we're going into 6 weeks now. if we divide that 14,000 by 4, that's $356 a week. Okay. So, can you honestly see your senator giving up $1,500, $15,000 for not doing the job that you're paying him to do when he can get it for just sitting around on his ass, derriere? Huh? Can you? No. So you're not going to get 2/3 of those powers. Even if you could, 3/5 of the states would have to do that, and that could take 7 years for that to happen. And the last time an amendment happened, it was the ERA in the 70s. And even though the Supreme Court extended that through to the mid 1980s. So why is Graham doing? What do you think? Uh, okay, well, uh, I know Graham, and he's a good lawyer, but he's a politician. And I don't think he came up with this idea himself. I think it was supervised. He's a good person. He's bright, but this isn't something he could come up with, in my opinion. Okay. Uh, maybe a constituent said, "Hey, Lindsay." Maybe he did. Maybe I'm wrong. But I think he's doing this because the Republicans are scared. South Carolina's a red state. So he's probably afraid of challenging the Republican primary. If he loses the Republican primary, then it's going to be a pretty even race because you won't have an incumbent. If he wins the primaries, he'll win the general election because it's better than a 90% chance of an incumbent winning. So he's doing this because he's preparing for the midterms next year. He does not want to be challenged. If he's challenged by someone for his seat, former Senator Andre Bauer, former Lieutenant Governor Andre Bauer, was going to run for Senate. He backed out because he was sick of the politics and basically people taking pot shots at his wife and his kids for absolutely no reason. And he went on to Facebook and said this. And he would have made a terrific senate. But so I think someone's going to, Graham is afraid someone's going to challenge. If that's the case, then what Graham can say, you know what? I care about my constituents because I came up with this bill. Now, it may not go through, but I came up with this bill. And that shows that I care about my constituents. And because most people don't think about what politicians are saying, just because it sounds good is for most people, they'll buy that. I'm not saying Lindsay shouldn't be reelected, okay? I am saying that I believe he's political posturing. And I'm saying this about someone who I otherwise would have a great deal of respect for, admire, and agree with politically for the most part. Because I think people need to really think about what politicians are saying. They need to look far beneath what is being said. Okay, because if we don't, we will end up having an elected king. We will have another Castro. We will have another Marcos, and that lasted from the 30 years? From the 1950s to when he had Corazon Aquino's husband, Aquino posed him with a senator, allegedly murdered. That's now named in Manila. So we have to be careful. We have to hold these guys accountable. If they stop having the town hall meetings, we need to call their offices, write them letters, send their emails, and say, we need to have a meeting. I need to know what the hell's going on. Okay. The Republicans are, or at least up until recently, were insisting on having the Epstein file. Okay. Promised during the election, I'll release the Epstein trial. Pam Bondi said, hey, it's on my desk, but they won't release the Epstein file. Okay. What was the ICE thing that we were going to talk about? Right. Yeah. People from South Korea were brought up. This occurred in September, and I've interviewed one of the people on ABC's This Week with George Stephanopoulos today. These guys were brought over here on professional work visa. These were engineers, top notch. They were supposed to build manufacturing plants in Georgia, and ICE had a raid and shipped them overseas. And Trump was like, well, good job. Well, now that he's being criticized by the media for it, he's like, oh, this was a mistake. They didn't do it under my orders. This was a mistake that they made the wrong. We're going to invite them back. Now, why would he do this? Well, he just made a deal with the leader of South Korea to get, what was it, minerals?
Yeah.
Yeah, precious minerals. So it would be cheaper for us to make product. Probably this has ticked off that leader, South Korea. You guys got plan? You plan to go on vacation this year for Thanksgiving break? Anybody you know going to fly? Well, you guys, the airports are shut down. Yeah, well, by Monday, it's going to be 10% of all of the major airports in this country um, are going to be shut down, and that's going to increase to 20% because these Homeland Security people that are at our airports that check off, they haven't been paid since September. And there's the air traffic control. They're calling in sick. They're saying, I haven't gotten a paycheck. They're driving. I actually saw this on the news today. They're driving. They haven't gotten their check, so they're driving for Uber and Lyft and Google Eats and what's DoorDash. Yeah. I mean, literally, this was on this week with George Stephanopoulos. Guys, you got to bring this up. They're doing DoorDash, so they're not coming in. And now, I guess he's under Trump's advisor person. He's having them AWOL so they can't get their benefits. Well, there's a little glitch here. The 2019 Act says they have to get back paid in and shut down. I don't want to pretend this is just happening in our country because this week we had a prince no longer become a prince. King Charles of England, whose younger brother Andrew, the Duke of York, former Duke, and who was mixed up with Jeffrey Epstein. Apparently, they found an email between him and Epstein. He said Epstein, he said that he'd never met what's her name that was trafficked. Yeah. Um, No, Virginia Giuffre. Elaine Maxwell was Epstein's accomplice. And he said that, oh, well, that picture's fake. Well, they found an email that basically said, I had a good time with the guy you set me up with. The money was worth all the money kind of thing, email. Uh, and then he's been implicated in basically dealing with representatives from communist China. So basically, the King of England has basically said, you're no longer prince. You are now going to be Mr. Mountbatten. Of course, he still ain't the on the throne. Not that that's going to ever happen. That's never happened in history of the monarchy, which goes back to 1066. But yeah, so we no longer have a prince that is prince, and quite frankly, I'm thrilled about that because the guy's a pervert. And quite frankly, I would like to see, apparently Clinton and point is, you could be coming in. I mean, you may have been born in this country and your grandparents born in this country, but at this point, someone could come to your door, start somewhere, and it could come to my door if this goes viral, and arrest me, okay? And I've got proof that I was born, but I'm exercising my First Amendment right. We have a president that is, and I'm saying this as a Republican, he's a crook. He's a danger, or at the very least, he's a danger to this country. And I'm going to make a prediction. I'm going to predict that the Republicans lose one, at least one, maybe both houses in the midterm. And if that happens, it'll be the best thing for this country and the best thing for the Republican Party, because the Republican Party will have to ask itself, really take a hard look at itself, because these guys, governors were kowtowing governor even before Trump was elected president again. He wasn't even an elected official. And people were afraid of him. Why? That's too much power. Again, this isn't a partisan thing, okay? I don't give a hoot about whether the stock market is up or the stock market is down, other than the fact that it's done so badly that I haven't had a report from my state stock retirement plan. Okay, I care about the fact that I went to the store the other day. I bought 6 or 7 things and it cost me 70 bucks. Okay. Eggs are maybe it's six. The point is, people are feeling it in the pot. Okay, you actually have employed people, including myself, who have had to go down to Harvest with our local food bank and call this up just to make ends meet. I want to see the president on the street. I want to see him. I want to see his country and his entire company go bankrupt. I want to see him kicked out of the White House. You know the thing about Lazarus and the poor man? No, the rich man. Lazarus and the rich man. It was in the Bible. This guy, rich guy, Lazarus is pessimist. I'll take scratch. And so the rich man dies and he goes to heaven. And the poor man dies and he goes to hell. And he sees the rich guy in heaven and he says, well, come down here and just have Lazarus. Put just one drop of water on my tongue. And God tells him and says, look, I'm sorry, there's no way to get between here and there. Like he said, well, there's no, they have the preachers and the prophets and everything. Have you been more giving and more generous? So, I mean, I agree with some of what Trump is doing. I don't agree with the way he's going about it. The end is, I mean, yes, he has brought down illegal immigration, even though he's gone about it. And I don't know if the ends justify the way he's done it because he sent people over there, he's ignored the courts. They're usually more vocal than so my point is, people, we have to hold these people accountable. And this is what I would do. I would look well, actually, I would look at where the economy is at the end of this month, at the end of, after Black Friday. And then I would look at it on January 2nd. And if it hasn't gotten any better, you need to really think about who's to blame. Now, I'm going to remind you guys of something. The president doesn't make the laws. Oh, has executive orders and everything. But Congress makes the law. The president enforces the law. The U.S. Supreme Court interprets the law. So whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, your U.S. is failing. They have screwed you over big time. They have screwed me over big time. They have screwed over everyone in this country big time because they're not going to work and they're still getting paid. They're making it so you can't visit your family for the holidays. They're causing people to lose their jobs. Okay. There was a time when getting a job in the federal government meant security. That's no longer true. It's both parties' fault. Although I will say this for the Democrats, because I think credit should be given where credit is due. They did come up with what I consider a reasonable compromise. They said, okay, we will open up the government. But why don't you extend the Obamacare, which I don't agree with the Obamacare thing. But why don't you extend these and we can look at whether illegal immigration long enough for us to look at the real situation for another 6 months or a year. And the Republicans said no. We're not going to talk about the health care benefits until you open it up. Well, people, that's the oldest trick in the book. If the Democrats were to agree to that, they would be free. Because then the Trumps would come back and they said, we would think about it. And they wouldn't give them. So, I'm sorry. Okay. The Republicans are in power. They control both houses. So right now, they have to take the brunt of it. Ironically enough, the president has said he wants to do away with the filibuster, which was put in place to help minorities. You and it's usually the Democrats that are asking for that. And so the filibuster. So don't pay attention, in my opinion. Don't pay attention to this garbage about the filibuster. That's partisan. We've This country has gotten to such a situation where basically people don't vote on the issue. I hate to say this, Bruce, but you have called me on it in the past. Only one person. Okay, we need to look at being on one issue, voting on one issue. If we can't decide either way, then maybe use that one issue to break the tiebreaker. But if your paycheck is not going as far as it did last year, we need to hold our elected representatives accountable. Just like Charles held his brother accountable. It wasn't easy. It was his brother, okay? But his brother is a pedophile, okay? Or alleged pedophile. Can't have that guy holding a royal title. But he is protecting all his own property, paying for that. Personally, I think you should just give Andrew a big lump sum check and say, get a job, fend for yourself. Write me a letter when you start acting responsibly. But hey, it's coming out of the prince's own pocket, the king's own pocket. It's not coming out of taxpayer funds, which this shutdown is. So while Lindsey Graham has a good idea, if you live in South Carolina, you really need to ask him how sincere he is about it. And if you live outside South Carolina, maybe you should vote for it. You should have your senator vote for it. And so it does get 2/3 in both houses. Is ratified. And senators do have their money taken from them because they've got jobs as lawyers and doctors and consultants and whatever. But I would make one change. I would also include the president, who makes 400 grand a year. Well, 602 if you include the benefit. Okay. Uh, well, 333,000 a month, but 602 grand a month. So he makes almost $500,000 tax free. Now, this brings me to why I think Graham did not include the president and the vice president. I think there's a possibility, although I don't think he would be successful, of wanting to run for president. Right now, the Republicans don't have anyone, and Graham probably thinks he's it. Oh, and he could probably beat J.D. Vance. But he's also a Trump sucker. He's a brown-nosing sucker. And I think adding the president to his little bill would really sink Graham. People are afraid of this man. Members of his own party are afraid of this man. If that doesn't have the sign, the very least, of bordering on becoming a dictator, I don't know what does. What do you think? Would you agree with that? Would you agree with that, Bruce? Okay, would you guys agree with that? Disagree with that? Let me know at Right Stuff Seymour at X. WRITESTUFFCMOUR. Okay, or you, okay. You can also write your comments in the comment question here. And if you like this, subscribe because I want to do more of these and I want to get the advertising. So, real talk is for real people. I say what I think. And if you disagree with me, I'm not afraid to have you disagree. I want to get this show to a point where you can call in and disagree with me. Okay, so I hope you share this. Just hold these guys accountable. All Democrats and all Republicans are not either evil or perfect. There are just as many in one party shooting the BS as there is the other. What's good for one party should be good for the other. And I gotta say, shutdown's costing us too much money. It's ruining our tourism because people fly from overseas and around the country. And if the airlines aren't making money, states that they fly into aren't making money, and that's costing, that means jobs are going down, and it could be your job. So, as far as the shutdown goes, tell your elected official to put up or shut up. This is Keith Seymour from Real Talk. Have a good day.